Welcome back to Studio MMA, and we are joined here by Dan, the Outlaw Hardy. Dan, how are you doing? You're here in Sweden for UFC Fight Night Stockholm.
I'm good. I'm excited to be here. It's a great fight card. I can't wait.
Now, as most people are aware of now, you've gone from being Dan Hardy, the fighter, to Dan Hardy, the broadcaster slash commentator slash UFC personality.
All kinds of things.
How do you feel about this sort of switch around?
I love it. I'm missing fighting, and I still do plan on having a couple of fights in the future. But at the same time, I mean, this is a dream come true. It's an ideal job for me. I'm a UFC fan first and foremost, and always have been. And to be able to be around fight week and to be interacting with the fans and the fighters, and to obviously sit octagon side and call the fights, it's a dream job.
Now, you're coming technically from 2 straight wins. When are we going to see a potential third in that case, if you're thinking about getting back in the octagon?
I'm looking at getting cleared at the beginning of next year. I've spoken to a few doctors and it's looking positive. I don't see a reason why I wouldn't get cleared to fight. So now really it's just about getting back into training camp, getting back into the groove of preparing for a fight. I've been training every day. I'm still very active, and I've changed a few things about my training, and I'm a little lighter now. I'm a bit quicker. I'm much more in a similar physical state to how I was when I was competing regularly before the UFC. And to be honest, that's when I felt I was at my best. And
right.
One thing that's frustrating about this job is that I don't feel like I've shown my best in the UFC yet. So I would like maybe 2 or 3 more fights just to kind of get that out of the way so I can focus on being a commentator.
Now, as you mentioned, you're a bit lighter these days. I remember when we spoke in London, you were talking about potentially having your next fight in lightweight.
It's a possibility, yeah. I mean, I was walking around when I was fighting at 170. I was walking around at 215, and although it was, I was a big, strong athlete at that weight class, I was never as quick and as agile as I used to be. And really, that was my fighting style. I'm not really a power punch. My skill is speed, and just being a technician. Being better than my opponent. And I feel like when I joined the UFC, I got away from that a little bit. I started focusing more on being an athlete and being, physically big and strong and working, out of training camp to gain weight and to gain muscle mass, and it just didn't really suit me. So now I've gone back to training in a way that feels more natural to my body, doing a lot of flexibility, a lot of yoga, a lot of conditioning, body weight conditioning, and my natural weight's leveled out at about 178.
Okay.
So even if I go back to fight at welterweight, I wouldn't be a great deal bigger than I am right now. I think lightweight would be a good challenge for me. I think there are a lot of good fights at that weight class, and a lot of good kickboxers, so I could have some good fights, yeah.
Well, I mean, the MMA is constantly evolving, and the MMA landscape changes so quickly. I mean, just from when you had your last fight until now, I mean, the lightweight division has just become stacked.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, statistically, I believe around every 5th UFC fighter is a lightweight. Something close to
that. Right?
Yeah,
wow.
I was told that yesterday. I haven't checked out the facts completely, but I know that there's an overwhelming amount of lightweights. Do you see that as a good thing or a bad thing? Because people, I mean, you might get lost in this big sea of lightweights if you come back there.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm not. My interest is not for titles and rankings anymore. I'm interested in my own journey, and to come back and fight would be really for my own personal growth. I don't have the time or the drive to be invested in fighting and calling people out and chasing titles. I want to fight and learn about martial arts with myself, and I think I could find that wherever in the division. I think everybody in the division would be a tough test for me.
Well, looking at the lightweight division, is there any fighters in particular you think style-wise that would be a fun fight, that'd be a good fight for the fans, good fight for me?
Well, the first one that comes to mind, and this is after his fight with Ross Pearson, Diego Sanchez. He's always kind of irritated me. I like Diego, and I respect him and I forgive him for his strangeness. But at the same time, in my opinion, he's kind of the problem with martial arts, with mixed martial arts. He started off as a really good fighter, and he's just slowly gotten worse throughout his career, and that is the opposite to how martial artists should develop. He's discarded technique, he's discarded logic and intelligence, and he's gone with hard-headedness and blocking punches with his face, and that is not a good example for future mixed martial artists. And I just feel like, particularly with my fighting style and how it's developing, in the last couple of years, I think that I could really expose him and hopefully teach him something about the martial arts and about where he's going wrong.
Well, I think your countryman Ross Pearson was on his way to doing that, but very controversially was not awarded a win. And it's not the first time that Sanchez has gotten away with a questionable decision. Takanori Gomi is another case. Is that something you'd be worried about?
No, I wouldn't need 15 minutes. I wouldn't need 15 minutes, I'm sure of that.
All right, well, that's actually a very good way of making sure that you avoid that controversy. So now that you've been a commentator and you've been working on sort of the other side of a cage, so to speak, I can imagine that you've gotten to see sort of the UFC and MMA fans and just the MMA scenes in general from a different perspective. And is there anything new or anything unusual that you've seen from your sort of ever point of view?
The one thing that is great about this job is that I'm watching so many more fights than I used to. I mean, as a UFC fan, you would think that a fighter is completely immersed in the sport, and you know, if you're fighting for the UFC, you're watching all the fights, and you're up to date on all the new news. But the truth is, I was so distracted with my own career that I was watching my opponents and maybe a couple of other guys that I wanted to emulate and work from. Whereas now, because I have to watch all the fights, I have to stay up to date. I'm seeing the trends that are going through the sport and the common mistakes that people are making and the things that are working. And the one thing that is becoming very apparent is that movement is the most important thing in mixed martial arts. The more agile you are, the more able you are to move yourself, the more chance you have of winning. And so my main focus at the moment is on my own ability to move comfortably and quickly through any plane of movement.
And are there any fighters in particular that you feel sort of illustrate this, how movement is key?
Well, the SBG guys are a good example. Obviously, Conor McGregor's doing huge things at the moment. Yeah, he's really, educating the fans about movement, in my opinion. But Gunnar Nelson is the one I'm watching. I think he's fascinating. He's the trapdoor spider. That's what me and my girlfriend call him.
The trapdoor spider?
Yeah. If you watch a trapdoor spider, they wait underground. They create like a web, and they wait until their prey crosses it, and then they shoot out and grab them and pull them down. And if you watch Gunnar's style, it's very much like that. He's very patient. It's, rounds are regardless. They don't matter to him. He's focused on solving the problem in front of him with martial arts, and that's where Bruce Lee was at. That's what he was trying to do, and to break down his opponent and to see how his skill set fits with this guy, and to then, as soon as he sees the opportunity to strike, drag him down to the ground and choke him out. I think it's fantastic. I mean, from my perspective, I would have much more of a striking approach to a similar type of thing, but I think Gunnar Nelson really demonstrates that very well.
I never thought of a likeness of a trapdoor spider, but now that you mention it, it's a very good one. If you were to liken yourself to something similar, either an animal or an insect style, what would you liken Dan Hardy to?
I don't know. It'd probably be some kind of bird of prey. I'd like to say something like a wolf or a tiger, but I think a bird of prey because they...
A hawk, maybe?
Yeah, a hawk or an eagle. That was my original taekwondo school, was eagle taekwondo, so... And I've got eagle wings on my back. It's a lot of crossover there. But just the ability to stalk prey until they see an opportunity and then strike with lightning speed, and it's over and done with in a second. There's no fight in there. You disable them straight away and deal with it, and you've got your kill.
Reminds me of your win over Dwayne Ludwig.
Yeah. That was a great fight. Unfortunate because it was Dwayne, because he's a good friend of mine. But it was a good night.
All right. Well, we'll round off on the good tone of a good night. Dan, thank you very much for joining us in the studio, and for all you watching at home, you can look forward to even more interviews coming up until fight night. Dan, thank you very much.
Thank you.